back to my channel. My name is Elise and this is my mystical bookshelf. And today I have a book review from T. Kingfisher, and this is A House with Good Bones. And I read this in July, and these are my thoughts on it. So this book is about Sam, and she goes to live with her mom for a while, and she lives in Arizona, and she goes back to her childhood home, which is in North Carolina. And this house that she grew up in was also her grandmother's house. So her mom, her brother, and her lived in this house with their grandma, and their grandma recently passed away, I think a couple months ago maybe, and her mom moves back to the house, and I think it's just because the house was passed down to her probably, and I don't think she had anywhere else to live at the time. So Sam goes to visit her mom, and she notices her mom is acting strange, which is very evident in like the first chapter. Like you can tell that there's something off. And the first thing that really keys the reader in to something being wrong is there's a bunch of vultures around the house, which is kind of creepy in and of itself, even though vultures are really cool birds, and T. Kingfisher does a great job explaining vultures and how they act and how they interact with people and their surroundings. They're actually really cool birds. But that's later in the book. But the first part is sort of like Sam trying to figure out what exactly is wrong with her mom and why is she acting weird. And it's stated that there's some generational trauma because Sam's grandma grew up living a hard life, and her dad was kind of weird. It says he was a warlock and practiced like black magic or something like that, and her dad never really paid attention to her. So I think her grandma grew up with a lot of resentment in her heart because of that. And it's revealed that her dad was like well known for being crazy, and I thought that was like the most interesting part of the book. And her grandma tries to, I guess, get her dad's attention by also practicing magic, but it doesn't really work. And the only thing that her grandma can really do with the magic is like grow roses, which, I mean, isn't a bad thing. The roses are very beautiful, and Sam is convinced that there's something wrong with the house from the get-go, and it's pretty obvious. But the book is kind of a slow start. It starts off with Sam going there and seeing her mom, and she just knows that something's off, and she notices that there's these paintings that her mom actively didn't like that are hanging up in the house now. I think one is of a Confederate wedding, which is like Sam's family, like that's considered racist, which, I mean, obviously it is because Confederate flag and stuff, but and her mom is like vehemently like defending why she has that picture up again, and Sam just notices that she's acting off. And Sam she stays with her mom because her job, she's a bug archaeologist, I think. I don't exactly remember what her title is, but she gets laid off from her job because they found human remains at the dig site that she was going to. So that's why she goes to stay with her mom in the first place. And she doesn't know when she's going to go back to her job. So that was kind of interesting too. But it was also part of the boring part of the book because Sam, like, I get it. She's passionate about her job. That's great. I'm happy for her. But there's just a lot of like descriptions of bugs and like their genus type and their species and what they mean. And I'm just like reading it and thinking, I don't care. I don't really care. I mean, it's kind of cool, I guess, but I found it personally a little bit boring. And the book doesn't really pick up until like 80% in, which I also thought was kind of disappointing. So like it mainly picks up after Sam learns about her great-grandfather and why he practiced magic. And she later finds out that he made these children, which is weird. They're like, I don't know, they're like demon children. They're like ghostly demons. They look very weird. They don't really have faces. They can't talk. It's the way T. Kingfisher writes them, they kind of sound like they make like mewing noises, like cat noises, which I thought was strange. And so that's where the book kind of picks up and gets interesting, because Sam finds out that her grandfather was a warlock practicing magic, and that her grandma also practiced magic, but like not to the extent of her great-grandfather. It was mainly just with the roses. And then she figures out that her grandma is haunting this house that they grew up in, and it's like stated that her grandma comes back and like haunts her mom and makes her mom feel like uncomfortable and not worthy of living in the house, and she makes her mom feel like a failure basically. So I thought that was kind of weird too. And it just, overall, this book was mainly about a lot of generational trauma and passing down traditions and like solving the mystery of why certain people in your family act the way that they do. Because like obviously her grandma acts this way because her dad raised her that way, but Sam's mom kind of tried to break the mold of acting the way her grandmother acted. And overall, I think the most interesting part of the book was how her grandma came back, and she was like this woman who had a body made of roses, which I thought was interesting, but it was also kind of weird. And it was just weird to see how, even though her grandma's been dead for like a couple months or however long it was, her mom still had like a fear of her own mother, which I thought was interesting. And Sam ends up like making her grandma go away at the end of the book, which is really interesting. And because she meets up with this older woman who her grandmother didn't like, named Gail. And it's interesting because one of the themes is like evil magic versus good magic, and Gail brings in this good magic, which is where the vultures come in, because the vultures aren't necessarily a bad thing in this book, which I thought was interesting. And they're actually really sweet creatures, and I love how T. Kingfisher incorporates them into the book, and how that Gail has a pet vulture who she rescued, and that vulture is really the catalyst towards the end. He like helps them get out of this like weird realm where her grandmother is this rose woman who's made of roses, and he helps them get away from these children that Sam's great-grandfather had created, which I also thought was interesting. So it's kind of like it's a horror book, but it has a good ending, which I thought was cool. I actually really enjoyed the ending. I thought it was funny, and I really enjoyed reading about vultures and like reading about their different characteristics. I guess I would just say I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought it would. I guess I saw a lot of hype revolving around this book, and I guess I wanted to see what the hype was about, but I didn't really get the hype because I thought it was good. I don't regret reading it, but overall I gave it 2.5 stars, 2 stars, and I mainly gave it 2.5 stars because it was mostly boring to me. I mean, about the bugs especially. Like, I don't think we needed that many bug descriptions or stuff like that. I would have liked to know more about her great-grandfather and her grandma. I would have definitely liked to delve more into that rather than Sam, like, just talking about her job and how she wants to get back to her job and sort of like denying everything that's happening, because Sam kind of denies everything that's happening in this book until like towards the end, basically. Like, she doesn't really believe that her grandma's haunting the house, and she just thinks her mom's acting weird because she's having this weird grief spiral about missing her mom. And I just thought maybe if Sam could have came to the conclusion or like accepted it sooner that there was something weird happening, maybe that could have helped speed up the book a little bit more, so that way we could have learned more about her grandfather or her great-grandfather and more about her grandma, because it's definitely about generational trauma, and I think T. Kingfisher could have used that to her advantage, but it was mainly just all towards the end and it was kind of rushed. I mean, I enjoyed the ending. That's pretty much where the two stars go, is the ending, because I thought it was really cool and it was really funny and interesting. But this was my first T. Kingfisher book, but I hope that her other books aren't like this. I think another book that I have from her is Thistlefoot, which I think is supposed to be a retelling of Baba Yaga, so I hope that one's a little more interesting. But overall, I didn't think this was a bad book. I enjoyed it. Even though I gave it like 2.5 stars, I still enjoyed it, and I don't regret reading it. And I think that T. Kingfisher is an excellent writer. She does have a really great voice, and I really felt like I was there with Sam. I just feel like I didn't connect with Sam as much because I'm obviously not as interested in bugs as she is. I actually don't like bugs that much. But I'm glad that Sam does, and that's really cool that there's a job for someone who likes bugs that much and can be like a bug archaeologist. It's actually really cool. It's just not for me. But yeah, overall, I just didn't really understand the hype around the book, but that's okay. And I hope that you enjoyed watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, friends.